the DJI Avata 2, bigger, lighter, further and smarter. Packed with new features and upgrades so good it will make you sell your very own grandmother just to get your hands on one.
Or will it? There's no doubt about it, the Avata 2 is packing some serious upgrades and punch over the Avata 1. But how much is it actually worth the upgrade? I'm going to take the Avata 2 on a little road trip, and I'll be testing it against my experiences with the Avata 1. And while I'm at it, why not score it? So I'm going to score the Avata 1 versus the Avata 2, and the score will be shown right here. If you're still on the fence of whether to buy one of these drones, or maybe you've bought one or upgraded from the Avata 1 and you're unsure whether you made the right decision, this is the right video for you. I'm Alex Wilder, and this is my Avata 2 review.
So I'm going to shoot this from inside the car because we've just arrived at Puzzlewood. It's raining, pissing down outside, so I'm not going to be talking outside in the rain. But while I'm in here in the dry, I'm going to talk to you about the most important part to many of us with the Avata 2, which is the camera. Now, the Avata 2's camera has a 1/1.3 inch sensor compared with the Avata 1, which has a 1/1.7 inch sensor. A bigger sensor will give you better low light performance, it captures more light, will give you better dynamic range and just a better picture quality. So that's fantastic. Definite point towards the Avata 2 over the Avata 1 in that aspect. Now, secondly, the Avata 2 now supports HDR, which is something that we've had added to the DJI Mini 4. Again, that'll give you amazing dynamic range. Great for beginners because HDR sort of type picture qualities are easy to start with without having to do much to the picture in editing and post-production. So fantastic they've added this, and a definite point towards the Avata 2 over the Avata 1. Finally, talking about recording quality, the Avata 2 now supports D-Log-M compared to the Avata 1, which supported D-Cinelike. And that's fantastic because D-Log-M is a color format which has been added to pretty much any new drone that DJI have released recently, including the DJI Mini 4 Pro, the Air 3, the Mavic 3 Pros had it added in a firmware upgrade. Pretty much any new drone that DJI release at the moment seem to support this color grading profile, which is great because it means that you can match color grades between different drones and different devices. Interestingly, this place that I'm going to be flying here is the Forest of Dean, or Puzzlewood, which has been featured in films like Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's an amazing place. It's got these moss-covered rock faces, very narrow ravines that you can walk through. A very moody place, very interesting. I'm going to be flying the Avata 2 through that. I'll be flying in normal or sports mode because I don't want to crash it. It's quite cramped in there, some members of the public, so I'll be flying nice and slow, keep the speed controllable, fly through some ravines, show you some footage of that. But interestingly, because it's quite dark and moody in there, that should put the D-Log-M and the larger sensor through its paces and see whatever it can record through that. So yeah, the camera is a definite upgrade on this drone, and I'm excited to fly this in the woodland in a minute. It's quite cramped in there.
So let's talk about the body of the Avata 2. Now, the body is larger and lighter than the Avata 1, which means that your flight time is longer. So you get about 21 minutes flight time compared with the Avata 1's 18. In reality, it's going to be less than that, but certainly, relatively speaking, your flight time is going to be longer. The downside with having a larger size and less weight is that your wind performance is going to be worse. In calm conditions, this flies absolutely beautifully, but in windy conditions, not so much, and it's going to be an unpleasant flight. So it's a plus point for flight time for the Avata 2, but a plus point for the Avata 1 and a negative for the Avata 2 as far as your performance in heavy winds is concerned. Now, another improvement with the Avata 2 over the Avata 1 is that you've now got 3-bladed props, which gives you much less noise, and that is a real significant difference, and it's fantastic in crowded environments where you can annoy people. This drone is quieter, and also the pitch of the drone is a lot less shrilly, high-pitchy, less attention-seeking than the Avata 1. So that's another plus point for the Avata 2. In terms of design, you've got various other changes. So the rear now has these kind of positioning sensors at a tilted angle to aid backwards and downwards facing, but they're not obstacle detection. They're just for positioning and optical positioning. So you won't have any obstacle detection, obstacle avoidance when you're flying backwards. The propellers are now tractors rather than pushers, which means that the whole design of where the propellers are and the center of gravity has changed. Now, one advantage of that is that because of that, the SD card position is now more accessible, and it's been a gripe with many people. The SD card's easily accessible like this, and the USB-C is much easier to access as well. So that's fantastic, and another point towards the 2. Now, it's quite funny when people talk about how the design of the SD card position of the Avata 1 was bad and how it's been designed better. The SD card position and the USB position is basically just part of your control stack, which is in here. So really all they've done is removed or changed the whole design of the drone around that stack. The position of that port effectively hasn't actually been changed. It's just the whole of the drone, and the fact that you've now got tractor instead of pusher props is what's allowing us to have a more accessibility of the SD card. The battery has also been changed. So on the battery side, you've now got a different battery design. The battery slot into the body. It's a sleeker, smaller battery design, probably a bit lighter as well. And rather than having to connect the battery connector, the power connector itself, you just slot it in like this. The batteries themselves also have a changed design docking station, which supports the function to use low charge batteries to top up the fullest battery using just the batteries themselves. Love that feature. Fantastic they've added that to the Avata 2 now. The drone also supports the O4 transmission system, which gives us less latency and fantastic range, certainly more range than the Avata 1. And there's another massive plus point for the Avata 2. So far, this drone is absolutely wiping it clean as far as the scores are concerned. So finishing off the Avata body itself, it still has the ducted fan guards or the propeller guards as we had with the Avata 1, which is fantastic. But, and this is a big but, these ones are not as durable as the Avata 1 was. It will protect you from some mild impacts, twigs and leaves and stuff like that. But heavy impacts, especially onto hard surfaces like concrete, walls, tree trunks, will cause damage on this, and you'll have to get replaced. Unfortunately, unlike the Avata 1 where the frame could be replaced, as of yet, this drone does not have replaceable frame sets. So that's a bit of a negative as well. So I'm going to give this 2 negative points. One for the fact that it's more fragile than the Avata 1, and a second that it's not actually replaceable like the Avata 1 was. So there are definitely 2 positive points for the Avata 1 over this. If you're flying careful with it, you should be fine, but just bear that in mind. And definitely I would recommend taking out Care Refresh on this drone, because that will save you your bacon a couple of times if you do crash it and damage it. In terms of flying performance, it's about the same as the Avata 1 was, with the exception of a faster ascent rate, which is up from 6 meters per second to now 9 meters per second. So it's definitely zippier than the Avata 1. But like I said, windy conditions is a bit unpleasant to fly, but on calm days, very smooth, very beautiful to fly. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the drone itself. Time for a coffee. Tell you what. Okay, so the Goggles 3, let's have a chat about them. The Goggles 3, I was quite skeptical about the design to start with, because it's got this funny sort of faceplate at the front, and I thought the design was going to be that you kind of clip them on and flip them down, which I was concerned about light leakage, because you wouldn't have a firm pressure on your face. But fortunately, it's actually different to what we expected. That faceplate is basically the only real mounting place on your face, and the rubber is more like a flimsy, it's just a seal. It's not actually any pressure point on it. And I'm finding this actually works really, really well. So I was skeptical about the goggles to start with, but actually I love them. I think they're so much better than the previous Goggles 2. The overall design is very lightweight. The transmission system is 04, which is really, really good. You've got this camera pass-through, which is actually quite good if you set it to 3D mode. That allows you to switch from your FPV mode, from your FPV view, into a real-life outside view. So that's quite good for switching back and forth if you're trying to work out what's going on around you. As with the Goggles 2, you've got adjustable diopters under here. That's adjustable from -6 to +2, and that's expandable to -8 with some adjusters that come with the set. You've got a built-in battery, which is also fantastic and an upgrade from the previous Goggles 2. And also you've got a built-in fan, which is an amazing upgrade, because when it comes to summer, those goggles are going to start steaming up. You can turn that fan on and that'll get rid of any mist. In addition to that, you've also got the ability to wirelessly share your live view. That's a fantastic feature if you've got a buddy come with you and you want to show them what you're doing, how you're flying. So overall, so many plus points. Built-in fan, built-in battery, better mounting system, 04. I absolutely love them, and I think they're practically an upgrade in every single way. So big, big plus for these. Controller. Not much different about this. Its main difference is that the antenna is now internal, less plastic on this, probably DJI trying to save some money. Internal antenna, I was a bit skeptical about that to start with, how good your transmission quality was going to be. A lot of us who had the DJI remotes would relate to that without an external antenna, the range can be quite poor. With this so far, it's actually been really good. So I think it might be the fact that it passes. Basically, this communicates with the goggles, and the goggles can communicate with the drone. But that's just speculation. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case. So the controller is a little bit lighter. The sticks are a tiny bit longer, I think about 2 millimeters longer, which was deemed to be preferential by many flyers. And you've got internal antennas. Apart from that, same as before, but still a very good design. Feels good in the hands, and the gimbals feel good. So, yep, very good. On the subject of controllers, is that a DJI love toy in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me? It's a love toy. Right, so the motion controller has been completely changed ergonomically. It's smaller. This dial thing here has been changed a little bit. It does feel quite good. I mean, it's quite intuitive. I like the position of the record button, which is on the side here, so it's easy to find. It's just going to be on your middle finger, so that's good. It's got the reversing function that the second motion controller had, which is good. But above anything, what's great with this controller, which is not a direct function of the controller, but what it allows you to do is easy acro, which allows you to do basically flips and 180 pans and things like that, just at a flip of a button. Great for beginners. The 180 sort of drift type function I find is actually quite useful, even for advanced pilots, because to do an accurate 180-degree drift through a gap and reverse out of that gap is difficult regardless of your level. It's just a very difficult maneuver. You have to get that 180 movement just spot on in order not to drift into a tree or some obstacle that you're not looking at, because basically you're reversing, you don't know where you're going. So once you lose sight of the direction you're going and you do the 180, it's in the hands of the gods if you're going to crash it or not. So yeah, that's a great function. In addition to that, also the head tracking, which is only enabled with the motion controller, is becoming more and more popular. It's a great way to become more dynamic when you're using this kind of way of controlling the drone. I personally still don't like it that much. I think it's still a bit restrictive, but I've seen people create some really good videos with it. So yeah, easy acro and head tracking functions. Great if you want to use this. I prefer this, but I can definitely see time and a place for this controller. I'm hoping that some of those functions are going to be introduced to the remote, the proper remote. It would also be quite good to have the easy acro and those functions added to the sports mode on this. At the moment, it's only enabled on normal mode, which is quite slow, but who knows, they might add it at a later stage. So there we have it. The Avata 2 is an improvement over the Avata 1 in almost every single way. There are actually a few things that I've even missed out. So here they are. So first of all, Rocksteady, much improved on the Avata 2. With the Avata 1, I found that Rocksteady just wasn't quite capable of stabilizing footage on very windy days. It was still quite choppy and unsteady. With the Avata 2, I find Rocksteady is pretty much on par with Gyroflow. Doesn't give you the flexibility of Gyroflow, but it's certainly in terms of the punch it packs in stabilizing your footage, it's very much up there. Then you've got the lower cost. £1,050 for flying more of this drone with goggles, motion controller, 2 extra batteries, charge hub, and a bag. Much lower than any of us expected when we were looking at the leaks. Fantastic price point for this drone and a massive plus point for the Avata 2. Also, you've got internal storage, 46 gigabytes up from 20 gigabytes on the Avata 1. That's a very usable amount of storage, even at the highest quality settings. That'll allow you to record about 45 minutes of footage, which is amazing. So, yep, another plus point for internal storage. So that leaves me with a score of 15 points for the Avata 2 versus just 3 on the Avata 1. With that being said, the shortcomings of the Avata 2 are quite significant. And if you crash it, the chances are, if it's a hard crash, you will damage it and you'll have to send it off for repairs. So make sure that you get care refresh on it. It doesn't like to be crashed as much as the Avata 1. So that is one big negative. Another slight gripe with the Avata 2 is that there are more signs again of DJI cutting costs. And the concern with that is if the costs are being cut in areas that we can see, such as the transmission system on the remote controller, as has been recently shown by Madstech, it makes you wonder where else they're cutting costs and where it's going to lead to. So it's no real issue at the moment. The drone does fly amazingly well. It performs great. But what are the next steps? What's the future of DJI drones like? Hopefully it's going to stay as good as they are now because they have great products, and I hope it stays that way. With that all being said, it is a great product and the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages in my view. Most of the improvements are really ease of life improvements. So if you're expecting this drone to give you better footage and make you fly better, chances are it probably won't. It's got slightly better picture quality. It flies a little bit better in some circumstances, not when it's windy. So don't buy it if you're expecting much better footage from it. So should you sell the Avata 1 and buy an Avata 2? Yes, but only if you don't crash the Avata 1 a lot and hard. If you do, you're probably best off staying with the Avata 1 because it does like crashing a lot more than this drone does. Should you buy an Avata 2 if you're new in the market for an FPV drone with GPS? Absolutely. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please do remember to hit that like and subscribe button because it does help the channel. Other than that, till next time, happy flying and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.